with member cities having a great deal of autonomy. The Ghana Empire, Mali Empire, and Songhai Empire acquired gold utilizing alluvial methods of mining in Bambuk. Ghana. The Ghana Empire may have been an established kingdom as early as the 3rd century CE, founded among the Soninke, a Mande people who lived at the crossroads of this new trade around the city of Kumbi Saleh. Ghana was first mentioned by Arab geographer Al-Farazi in the late 8th century. After 800, the empire expanded rapidly, coming to dominate the entire western Sudan. At its height, the empire could field an army of 200,000 soldiers. Ghana was inhabited by urban dwellers and rural farmers. The urban dwellers included the administrators of the empire, who were Muslim, and the Ghana king, who practiced traditional religion. 2 towns existed, one where the Muslim administrators and Berber Arabs lived, which was connected by a stone-paved road to the king's residence. The rural dwellers lived in villages, which joined into broader polities that pledged loyalty to Ghana. Ghana was viewed as divine, and his physical well-being reflected on the whole society. Ghana converted to Islam around 1050 after conquering Ouda Coast. The Ghana Empire grew wealthy by taxing the trans-Saharan trade that linked Tiaret and Sijil Massa to Ouda Coast. Ghana controlled access to the goldfields of Bambuk, southeast of Kumbi Saleh. A percentage of salt and gold going through its territory was taken. The empire was not involved in production. In the 10th century, Islam was steadily growing in the region due to various influences, including internal dynastic struggles coupled with competing foreign interests, namely Almoravid intervention. By the 11th century, Ghana was in decline. It was once thought that the sacking of Kumbi Saleh by Berbers under the Almoravid dynasty in 1076 was the cause, but this is no longer accepted. Several alternative explanations are cited. One important reason is the transfer of the gold trade east to the Niger River and the Tagaza Trail, and Ghana's consequent economic decline. Another reason cited is political instability through rivalry among the different hereditary polities. The empire came to an end in 1230 when Takrur in northern Senegal took over the capital, Soso. The first successor to the Ghana Empire was that of the Soso, a Takrur people who built their empire on the ruins of the old. Despite initial successes, the Soso king Sumaro Kante was defeated by the Mandinka prince Sundiata Keita at the Battle of Kirina in 1240, toppling the Soso and guaranteeing the supremacy of Sundiata's new Mali Empire. Mali. The Mali Empire began in the 13th century CE, eventually creating a centralized state, including most of West Africa. It originated when a Mandingo leader, Sundiata, Lord Lion of the Keita clan, defeated Sumaro Kante, king of the Soso or southern Soninke, at the Battle of Kirina in c. chapter 1235. Sundiata continued his conquest from the fertile forests and Niger Valley, east to the Niger Bend, north into the Sahara, and west to the Atlantic Ocean, absorbing the remains of the Ghana Empire. Sundiata took on the title of Mansa. He established the capital of his empire at Niani. Although the salt and gold trade continued to be important to the Mali Empire, agriculture and pastoralism was also critical. The growing of sorghum, millet, and rice was a vital function. On the northern borders of the Sahel, grazing cattle, sheep, goats, and camels were major activities. Mande society was organized around the village and land. A cluster of villages was called a kafu, ruled by a farmer. The farmer paid tribute to the Mansa. A dedicated army of elite cavalry and infantry maintained order, commanded by the royal court. A formidable force could be raised from tributary regions if necessary. Conversion to Islam was a gradual process. The power of the Mansa depended on upholding traditional beliefs and a spiritual foundation of power. Sundiata initially kept Islam at bay. Later Mansas were devout Muslims but still acknowledged traditional deities and took part in traditional rituals and festivals, which were important to the Mande. Islam became a court religion under Sundiata's son Oyo Empire, 1225–1270. Mansa Uli made a pilgrimage to Mecca, becoming recognized within the Muslim world. The court was staffed with literate Muslims as secretaries and accountants. Muslim traveler Ibn Battuta left vivid descriptions of the empire. The Mali Empire saw an expansion of learning and literacy. In 1285, Sakura, a freed slave, usurped the throne. This Mansa drove the Tuareg out of Timbuktu and established it as a center of learning and commerce. The book trade increased, and book copying became a very respectable and profitable profession. Kanku Musaf founded a university at Timbuktu and instituted a program of free healthcare and education for Malian citizens with the help of doctors and scholars brought back from his legendary Hajj. Timbuktu and Jenne became important centers of learning within the Muslim world. The University of Sankore, which began as the Mosque of Sankore, served as an organization of higher learning in Timbuktu. The Mosque of Sankore, the Mosque of Sidi Yahya, and the Mosque of Jingwereber constitute what is referred to as the University of Timbuktu. Mali reached the peak of its power and extent in the 14th century when Mansa Musa, 1312–13, made his famous Hajj to Mecca with 500 slaves, each holding a bar of gold worth 500 mithqal. Mansa Musa's Hajj devalued gold in Mamluk Egypt for a decade. He made a great impression on the minds of the Muslim and European world. He invited scholars and architects like Ishal al-Tuejin Agna al-Asahilai to further integrate Mali into the Islamic world. After the reign of Mansa Suleiman, 1341–1360, Mali began its spiral downward. Mossi cavalry raided the exposed southern border. Tuareg harassed the northern border to retake Timbuktu. Fulani, Fulbe, eroded Mali's authority in the west by establishing the independent imamate of Fouta Toro, a successor to the Kingdom of Takrur. Serer and Wolof alliances were broken. In the 15th century, the city-state of Gao made a bid for independence and regional power. Under the leadership of Soni Ali, 1464–1492, the Songhai of Gao formed the Songhai Empire, which would fill the vacuum left by the Mali Empire's collapse. In 1545–1546, the Songhai Empire took Niani. After 1599, the Mali Empire lost the Bambouk goldfields and disintegrated into petty politics. Songhai, the Songhai people, are descended from fishermen on the Middle Niger River. They established their capital at Kukia in the 9th century CE and at Gao in the 12th century. The Songhai speak a Nilo-Saharan language. Soni Ali, a Songhai, began his conquest by capturing Timbuktu in 1468 from the Tuareg. He extended the empire to the north, deep into the desert, pushed the Mossi further south of the Niger, and expanded southwest to Jenne. His army consisted of cavalry and a fleet of canoes. Soni Ali was not a Muslim, and he was portrayed negatively by Berber Arab scholars, especially for attacking Muslim Timbuktu. After his death in 1492, his heirs were deposed by his nephew and General Mohammed Touré. Mohammed Touré, 1493–1528, founded the Askia dynasty. Askia being the title of the king, he consolidated the conquests of Soni Ali. Islam was used to extend his authority by declaring jihad on the Mossi, reviving the trans-Saharan trade, and having the Abbasid shadow caliph in Cairo declare him as Caliph of Sudan. He established Timbuktu as a great center of Islamic learning. Muhammad Toure expanded the empire by pushing the Tuareg north, capturing Air in the east, and capturing salt-producing Tagaza. He brought the Hausa states into the Songhai trading network. He further centralized the administration of the empire by selecting administrators from loyal servants and families and assigning them to conquered territories. They were responsible for raising local militias. Centralization made Songhai very stable, even during dynastic disputes. Leo Africanus left vivid descriptions of the empire under Askia Muhammad. Askia Muhammad was deposed by his son in 1528. After much rivalry, Muhammad Toure's last son, Askia Daoud, 1529 to 1582, assumed the throne. In 1580, Morocco invaded the Songhai Empire under Ahmed al-Mansur of the Saadi dynasty to secure the gold fields of the Sahel. At the Battle of Tondibi, the Songhai army was defeated. The Moroccans captured Jenne, Gao, and Timbuktu, but they were unable to secure the whole region. Askia Nuhu and the Songhai army regrouped at Dendi in the heart of Songhai territory, where a spirited guerrilla resistance sapped the resources of the Moroccans, who were dependent upon constant resupply from Morocco. Songhai split into several states during the 17th century. Morocco found its venture unprofitable. The gold trade had been diverted to Europeans on the coast. Most of the trans-Saharan trade was now diverted east to Bornu. Expensive equipment purchased with gold had to be sent across the Sahara, an unsustainable scenario. The Moroccans who remained married into the population and were referred to as Arma or Ruma. They established themselves at Timbuktu as a military caste with various fiefs, independent from Morocco. Amid the chaos, other groups began to assert themselves, including the Fulani of Futa Toro, who encroached from the west. The Bambara Empire, one of the states that broke from Songhai, sacked Gao. In 1737, the Tuareg massacred the Arma. Sokoto Caliphate. The Fulani were migratory people. They moved from Mauritania and settled in Futa Toro, Futa Jalam, and subsequently throughout the rest of West Africa. By the 14th century CE, they had converted to Islam. During the 8th century, they established themselves at Makina in southern Mali. During the centuries, they declared jihads on non-Muslims. Several states were formed from these jihadist wars, including Bundu, the Imamate of Futa Toro, the Imamate of Futa Jalon, and the Masina Empire. The most important of these states was the Sokoto Caliphate, or Fulani Empire. In the city of Gobir, Usman Dan Fodio, 1754 to 1817, accused the Hausa leadership of practicing an impure version of Islam and of moral corruption. In 1804, he launched the Fulani War as a jihad among a population that was restless about high taxes and discontented with its leaders. Jihad fever swept northern Nigeria, with strong support among both the Fulani and the Hausa. Usman created an empire that included parts of northern Nigeria, Benin, and Cameroon, with Sokoto as its capital. He retired to teach and write and handed the empire to his son, Muhammad Bello. The Sokoto Caliphate lasted until 1903, when the British conquered northern Nigeria. Akan kingdoms and emergence of Ashanti Empire. The Akan speak the Kwa language. The speakers of Kwa languages are believed to have come from East-Central Africa before settling in the Sahel. By the 11th century, the Akan kingdom of Bonoman, Bono state, was established. Bonoman was a trading state created by the Bono people. Bonoman was a medieval Akan kingdom in what is now the Brong Ahafo region of Ghana and eastern Ivory Coast. It is generally accepted as the origin of the subgroups of the Akan people who migrated out of the state at various times to create new Akan states in search of gold. The gold trade, which started to boom in Bonaman as early as the 12th century, was the genesis of Akan power and wealth in the region, beginning in the Middle Ages. During the 13th century, when the gold mines in modern-day Mali started to become depleted, Bonaman and later other Akan states began to rise to prominence as the major players in the gold trade. It was Bonaman that begat several Akan kingdoms like Mankasim, Denkira, Akiem, Akwamu, and others. Later, the Empire of Ashanti was founded. When and how the Ashanti got to their present location is debatable. What is known is that by the 17th century, Akan people were identified as living in a state called Kwaman. The location of the state was north of Lake Basumtwe. The state's revenue was mainly derived from trading in gold and kola nuts and clearing forest to plant yams. They built towns between the Pra and Okbunta rivers. They formed alliances for defense and paid tribute to Denkira, one of the more powerful Akan states at that time, along with Adansi and Akwamu. During the 16th century, Ashanti society experienced sudden changes, including population growth because of cultivation of New World plants, such as cassava and maize, and an increase in the gold trade between the coast and the north. By the 17th century, Osei Kofi Tutu Wars, 1695-1717, with help of Okomfo Anokye, unified what became the Ashanti into a confederation with the golden stool as a symbol of their unity and spirit. Osei Tutu engaged in a massive territorial expansion. He built up the Ashanti army based on the Akan state of Akwamu, introducing new organization and turning a disciplined militia into an effective fighting machine. In 1701, the Ashanti conquered Denkira, giving them access to the coastal trade with Europeans, especially the Dutch. Opoku Warawa, 1720-1745, engaged in further expansion, adding other southern Akan states to the growing empire. He turned north, adding Tekiman, Banda, Gyaman, and Gonja, states on the Black Volta. Between 1744 and 1745, Asantehene Opoku attacked the powerful northern state of Dagomba, gaining control of the important Middle Niger trade routes. Kusi Obadom, 1750-1764, succeeded Opoku. He solidified all the newly won territories. Osei Kwadwo, 1707-1803, imposed administrative reforms that allowed the empire to be governed effectively and to continue its military expansion. Osei Kwame Panyin, 1707-1803, Osei Tutu Kwame, 1804-1807, and Osei Bonsu, 1807-1884, continued territorial consolidation and expansion. At its height, the Ashanti Empire included most of present-day Ghana and large parts of Côte d'Ivoire. The Asantehene inherited his position from his mother. He was assisted at the capital, Kumasi, by a civil service of men talented in trade, diplomacy, and the military, with a head called the Gyasehene. Men from Arabia, Sudan, and Europe were employed in the civil service, all of them appointed by the Asantehene. At the capital and in other towns, the Ankobia, or special police, were used as bodyguards to the Asantehene, as sources of intelligence, and to suppress rebellion. Communication throughout the empire was maintained via a network of well-kept roads from the coast to the Middle Niger, and linking together other trade cities. For most of the 19th century, the Ashanti Empire remained a powerful force in West Africa. It was later annexed in 1900 by the British Empire, following 4 Anglo-Ashanti wars. Dahomey. The Dahomey Kingdom was founded in the early 17th century CE, when the Aya people of the Alada Kingdom moved northward and settled among the Fon. They began to assert their power a few years later. In so doing, they established the Kingdom of Dahomey, with its capital at Agbome. King Hoegbaja, c. 1645-1685, organized Dahomey into a powerful centralized state. He declared all lands to be owned by the king and subject to taxation. Primogeniture in The kingship was established, neutralizing all input from village chiefs. A cult of kingship was established. A captive slave would be sacrificed annually to honor the royal ancestors. During the 1720s, the slave-trading states of Whydah and Allada were taken, giving Dahomey direct access to the slave coast and trade with Europeans. King Agaja, 1708 to 1740, attempted to end the slave trade by keeping the slaves on plantations producing palm oil, but the European profits on slaves and Dahomey's dependency on firearms were too great. In 1730, under King Agaya, Dahomey was conquered by the Oyo Empire, and Dahomey had to pay tribute. Taxes on slaves were mostly paid in cowrie shells. During the 19th century, palm oil was the main trading commodity. France conquered Dahomey during the Second Franco-Dacian War, 1892 to 1894, and established a colonial government there. Most of the troops who fought against Dahomey were native Africans. Yoruba. Traditionally, the Yoruba people housed themselves as the inhabitants of a united empire, in contrast to the situation today, in which Yoruba is the cultural linguistic designation for speakers of a language in the Niger-Congo family. The name comes from a Hausa word to refer to the Oyo Empire. The first Yoruba state was Ile-Ife, which would later become the capital of the Ife Empire, said to have flourished in 1000 CE around a now deified figure, the first Oni Oduduwa. Oduduwa's sons would be the founders of the different city-states of the Yoruba, and his daughters would become the mothers of the various Yoruba Obas, or kings. Yoruba city-states were usually governed by an Oba and an Iwarefa, a council of chiefs who advised the Oba. By the 18th century, the Yoruba city-states formed a loose confederation, with the Oni of Ife as the head and Ife as the capital. As time went on, the individual city-states became more powerful, with their Obas assuming more powerful spiritual positions and diluting the authority of the Oni of Ife. Rivalry became intense among the city-states. The Oyo state was conquered in 1550 by the Kingdom of Nupe, which was in possession of cavalry, an important tactical advantage. As a result, Alaafin Orompoto, 1560-1580, King of Oyo, was sent into exile. After returning, he built up an army based on heavily armed cavalry and long-service troops. This made them nearly invincible in combat on the northern grasslands and in the thinly wooded forests. By the end of the 16th century, Oyo had added to their domain the western region of the Niger, the hills of Togo, the Yoruba of Ketu, the Dahomey, and the Fon nation. A governing council served the empire. With clear executive divisions, each acquired region was assigned a local administrator. Families served in king-making capacities. Oyo, as a northern Yoruba kingdom, served as a middleman in the north-south trade and connected the eastern forest of Guinea with the western and central Sudan, the Sahara, and North Africa. The